Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Fishing for Fatties. I'm Anthony. You might be wondering why we're hanging out in the garage today. Well, in my area we're having scattered thunderstorms and showers, so it's not ideal fishing. So I thought it'd be a good time to maybe go over a few things that I didn't get a chance to go over in my previous videos. If you watch those or if you watch any of my videos, you know by now that I love trolling for walleye, and I honestly think that that is the most successful tactic to use for fishing for these walleye. And so for someone who's just getting into it, I want to have this as maybe like an instructional video for somebody who's just getting into trolling for walleye, how you might want to tie to your main line a shock line or a fluorocarbon line to your crankbait and stuff like that, different speeds that you might use while you're trolling. And so that's what I wanted to go over today with you guys. So that's what I'm going to start off with. Is I'm going to start it's a double uni knot, and so I'm going to show you guys from a lead core to a braid to a fluorocarbon how I tie those up and why I tie them up. So I'll bring the camera up here onto the bench and I'll show you guys how I tie those, and I'll explain why I use that, and we'll just go from there. Alright guys, we're going to start with the lead core line. So tying from the lead core is going to be spooled on your reel, and we're going to go from lead core to a braid. And this is a Berkeley braid. It's probably, I think this is like 20-pound braid. I'm just using this just so you guys can see the color. Typically what I like to use is this Fireline Crystal 14-pound. And so first you want to start off is and this is what I prefer for the lead core, is this Suffix lead core 18-pound. And inside of this lead core here is actually this little lead over, and then wrapping over that is this braid. So what you want to do is you want to just kind of work this braid back, slide it up, just kind of real soft around it, pulling back, sliding it up, and then you'll break off a chunk of that lead, pull this back down, and so then you just got just a braid right here without any lead in it, and that's going to allow you to make your tie knot to your braided line. So then what I like to use is they're called double uni knots. And first thing you want to do is you want to cross your two lines here, and then your braided line that you're tying onto your main line, you want to put your fingers here, hold it, and create like a little loop, and then keep these two lines together, and then you want to wrap around, make that loop, and wrap around inside of the loop. And I like to wrap 8 times. So wrap 8 times. And then you want to hold that tag end and grab back at the main end and keep those straight. And you just want to pull your braided and then pull the tag and kind of pull them together. And then, well, you should wet it too. I forgot to tell you, you should wet it before you cinch it down. But then you go back to the other side, and with your lead core line to your braided line, you do the same thing. Put a couple fingers out to help create that loop, and then inside the loop you're gonna just go 8 times again. That's good. So, and then again, hold on to the tag end and hold on to the your mainline lead core end, and you're gonna just kind of pull them, and they're gonna cinch down. And you see how that just kind of balls up as that knot. And then final step is you lick that, get it wet, and then you take your main line end of your braid and your main line end of your lead core, and you're just going to pull those away, causing those knots to slide into one another, and they're going to ball up together, and they're going to be a knot and a knot. And so anytime there's any pressure on this knot is actually just tightening down even more. So in my experience, this is one of the best knots that you can use when you're tying onto your main line a different line, and whether it be braid or mono or fluorocarbon. And so the final step is you want to cut those tag ends down. So you cut the tag ends down, and you want to be close because you don't want these hitting on your eyelets as you're letting the line out. And there you go. That's your double uni knot right there. And another thing, you know, some people might not like tying those knots. I suggest using those knots. Other people like to use these barrel swivels. And these are great too. You can, you know, tie the one end of your main line and then the other end of your leader line to them. And the only thing that I would say is when you're picking these out, make sure you pick out small enough ones that it'll go through your smallest eyelet of your rod. And then also it'll go through the guide on your reel. Because I know a lot of times people get those and they'll reel up to their guide. Well, and it'll stop because that barrel swivel is too large and it won't go through that guide. So that's one thing to think about too. So and then after I tie this to my lead core, the braid I usually like to have around 45 feet. So I'm going to reel up 45 feet of this braid, and then I'll show you my next step. Alright guys, so I went ahead and I did that double uni knot on that braid. I peeled off that 45 feet. And I mean, you can go 40 feet if you want to. That's around 40 feet is typically what I use. The reason behind that is, let's say you want to fish pulling plugs in shallower water, 6 to 10 foot of water, and you still are just using those lead core lines. Well, you can still use the lead core because you're going to have that 40 foot of braided line out, and so you're pretty much just going to have that in the water. You're not going to need that weighted line, so then you're not going to have to switch between poles between a braided and a lead core. So then you could fish shallow, and then in the evenings the fish move down deeper. You can still use that same pole and fish lead core in like 20 foot of water. So anyways, this leader, this is a fluorocarbon leader. The reason why I use fluorocarbon over mono is fluoro sinks faster than mono, and that results in less slack or bow between the lure and the rod tip. And for strength wise, fluorocarbon is more abrasive resistant than standard mono. And so those are a few reasons why I like it. Also, the sensitivity, you can really feel it throughout the line, in the braid, and all the way back to the rod tip. You can feel that plug just swimming in the water, shaking back and forth. And so then the length on the fluorocarbon is determined length of rod. So if I got like a 5 foot rod, I typically only have like a 5 foot leader. If I have an 8 foot rod, I have an 8 foot leader. If I have a 10 foot rod, I have a 10 foot leader of the fluorocarbon. So and then I connect that fluorocarbon to this snap clip. And so then these snap clips, it makes it really easy to change out from your different plugs that you're using. You know, one color might not be working, so you want to switch it out. Well, you know, it saves you a lot of time than tying right onto them, so you can just use these snap clips. Alright guys, now we're down to the business end. We're gonna put the plug on. So the last couple of years, what's working best for me is these Salmo Hornets number 5s. Flicker shads, flicker minnows have always worked great for me too. And so what you want to do is you want to clip these on, and then you start letting the line out, and you let it out, and you don't really need one of those troll depth charts and stuff like that. Really just you let the line out, and let's say, yeah, and you'll learn as you go. Let's say I'm in 20 foot. I'm more than likely going to let out 100 foot of line, and I'm just going to watch my rod tip, and I'll bring my rod tip down here so you guys can see it. But so then my rod tip is shaking like this. That's my plug swimming in the water. And we'll back up real quick. When you first let that plug out, just let it out off to the side and make sure it's swimming straight. So you don't want it darting off to the left or the right. If it is, you can just kind of put a little needle nose on the eyelet here. And if it's running to the left, you want to move the eyelet to the right, vice versa. All right, so back to, you're letting the line out, you're in 20 foot of water, and you stop it and you see your rod tip and it's just going like this. Well, that's your bait swimming just fine in the water. So you let out 10 more feet, still swimming, 10 more feet, still swimming. Well, and then you let out another 10 feet and you see it go like this. It pops down, pops down, pops down. Well, that's the plug nose dipping into the bottom, and so you're hitting the bottom. So what I do is I just real quick 2 or 3 cranks, crank it up, and then if you still see it kind of tipping, 2 or 3 cranks until you see it like this. Just swimming again back to normal, and that's the depth that you want to be. As you find, usually I find the bottom, reel up a few times and let it swim, and so you're you know, within a foot of the bottom, having that plug swimming right off the bottom. So and that's what you want to see. So, and then another thing while I'm trolling, for speed, early in the spring, you're going to be going under 2 miles an hour for sure. You're probably going to be around 1.5 to 1.7. The thing is it all depends on the plug you're using too. You know, does this plug have a lot of action and while you're at a slower troll? You know, a lot of the ones that'll wobble, have a lot of wobble to them, they do really good at a slow troll too. And so at the beginning of the year, like I said, it's around 1.5, 1.7, and it could even be slower than that. Like I said, just as long as this plug is swimming good, you could be down to like 1.2, 1.3. And middle of summer starts rolling around, you're going to get up to around 2.3 to 2.5 miles an hour with this. And then keep in mind too, as your speed changes, so is the depth of this plug. So the faster you're going, the more line you're going to have to let out to get it to the bottom. The slower you're going, that weight's going to really sit down into the water, and you're going to have to have less line out the slower you're going. And another thing is too is like, so this is, I think this is around an 8-foot rod. Yeah, 8'6". So I got 8'6" here, and I have the smaller. This is a 5-foot rod, 5 foot something. Yeah, right at 5 foot. So on 5 foot, we got the line counter. This is the cold water series. And so typically I have these out the back, kind of at a slight angle, away, you know, not straight back, but kind of at a slight angle. So I got this one out the back on this side of the boat, and then this one out the side, slight angle out the back on this side. And so those will be my first ones out, and then I'll do an 8-footer, and then if depending on how many people we have in the boat, if we can have more lines out, I'll have, this is a 10-6. Yeah, 10-6. So then I got a 10-6, and then that one will be the one at the front, and it's the farthest out. And then so that's just staggering. So I got the shorter ones on the inside, middle ones, and then the far outside. And the length of the rod's helping control those plugs being far away, and so you're not twisting up and stuff like that. One of the biggest problems too I see is people, they hesitant about pulling lead cord because they say they always have problems twisting and wrapping up all their lines. Well, when you go on a turn, you want to make a slight gradual turn, and maybe even speed up on your turn so your inside plugs aren't sitting down grabbing in, and then most of the time that's how you're going to get your plugs wrapped up. So slight gradual turns, and then with the rod tip, I was always saying with the vibration, watch your rod tips. If it's not vibrating and it's just hanging down, either you got a small fish on there, or maybe you grabbed a little bit of vegetation down on the bottom and it's around that plug. And so what's going to happen is that plug's not going to be swimming straight, it's going to swim off to the other side, and it might swim into one of these plugs, and you're going to just start getting raveled up, and it's a big mess. So it's a lot of boat control and just keeping an eye on those rod tips, making sure they're swimming good and they're always got that vibration going on. So again, I went over the line tying, the speed, different rods that I use. Another thing too, oop, this one's long, better get it out of the way. So another thing too here, guys, is typically, most of the time, 90% of the time, I'm just using this 5-foot one off the back, and then I use the 10-foot one off the sides, and then usually never have any problems with anything getting tangled up. So then you might be saying, well, getting into pulling lead core is pretty expensive, you know, and maybe you're set up for pulling some bottom bouncers, or you got some rods for pulling bottom bouncers and stuff. Another way to pull without lead core is you can use these snap weights. So you can run up, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 foot. I've gone just 20 foot. I know there's like a system, like a 50 whatever system. I've gone just 10 foot from my plug. I've gone 20 foot from my plug, and just snap it on and let it out, and it'll hit the bottom, and you just kind of feel your rod tip. Same thing. It starts ticking. It's on the bottom. But you can just clip these on in front of your plug, and you can be fishing 20 foot of water with the plugs doing the same thing as these lead core lines that can do. Or if you got a couple rods in and you want to get some out of the way right away, you can use the snap weight, and it'll get a line down right away so you can get other lines out and, again, not worry about anything being tangled. And another thing that a lot of people don't ever talk about, or don't hear much people talk about, is using bottom bouncers for pulling plugs. So you can, same thing is you can take, you know, 10, 20 foot of mono. You can put on these barrel swivels here, and so you tie the barrel swivel on one end, and then that'll go to the clip on the bottom bouncer, and the other end you're going to use those quick clips, and that's what you're going to hook your plug to. So, and then this will get you down, same thing, it's the same concept and everything, and that's just a cheaper way to be able to pull those plugs without having to buy the lead core lines and everything. So, alright guys, moving on to bottom bouncers. That is my second favorite way to fish for walleye. Really effective way. And you can have a slower presentation. You can troll a little bit slower when they're a little finicky, and that's a good way to catch them that way. If you watched, what video was it? I think it was our second video. I talk about the length. I have a pro tip from a friend, Brian Dahl. He usually holds it out and holds his arm out into the tip of his nose, and that's the length that he'll use. And he's a guide on the river, and really good fisherman, and so I've tried it out and it's worked great for me. So I like to use these like bladed baits. They're, I think they're called Smileys, and I use it with a slow death hook. It has a slight bend in it, which causes a nice rotation when you have that night crawler on there. And what I do is I will just cut a night crawler in half, and I just kind of thread it up all the way up the hook, and I kind of pop it out and let the little tail end hang off here, and that brings a nice little swirl with that tail. So again, and then you hook this to your bottom bouncer, and then whatever, I like to use bait casters when I'm bottom bouncing, but you know, a lot of people use spinning reels too. So on your end, you're gonna have that clip, and then the clip just clips to the top of this bottom bouncer, and what happens is the bottom bouncer's on the bottom, and then the spinner blade is hanging up just a little bit past, and you kind of want to have just that, you want to see just a little tick in the rod, but you don't want it dragging down in the mud, because then that's where your bait's going to be, is dragging right on the bottom. So you just want to kind of have like a slight bounce. That's why I call them bottom bouncers, bounce in the bottom. And so have that bounce so the bait's up a foot or so off the bottom. So, and that's typically, like I said, I like to use those bladed bait, those smileys is what I think they're called. And then I make up a lot of them. Actually, my wife makes up a lot of them, and my daughter. And so a lot of these are made up, and what they do for them is they'll make them longer so you can adjust length, because we do fish Lake Erie. So in Lake Erie, it's all right to have them a little bit longer because of the water clarity. And that's another thing to keep in mind too, is like the type of water you're fishing. How clear is the water? You know, if you got crystal clear water, yeah, you're fine having a 3, maybe almost 4 foot leader from your bottom bouncer. You'd be fine because the fish can see that. You know, and a lot of the waters that I fish, it's murky. It's not real dirty, but it's not clear water. So that's one thing to keep in mind too. But anyways, back to this. So my wife makes them up, and she puts these quick clips on here. And so you can throw a blade on there. That blade color isn't working. You know, you're trying red or orange. Well, one catches, somebody starts catching them on purple. You reel it in and pop the clip off, and you throw a purple blade on there, and you're back out fishing. And then for trolling, I would say for speed, typically trolling bottom bouncers, you're going to be around that 1.3 to 1.5. And you honestly, like, you could almost troll year round at like 1 to 1.3. Earlier in the year, of course, you want to always slow things down. And the thing with slowing down is you can only go as slow as that blade will spin. You know, if you're going slow and that blade's not spinning, well, then you need to go a little bit faster than that. Or there's like these smaller blades that I had out. These ones will spin at slower speeds. So you can these little blades, they'll spin at slower speeds. The bigger blades, they'll spin at slower speeds too, but it might not look natural. You might have to speed up just a little bit. So just watch. Same thing. Dip that water in there. See how it looks in the water before you drop it down, and see how that blade's spinning. And you can decide, am I going fast enough, or am I going, So again, earlier in the year, you're going to be trolling slower. Midsummer, you're probably going to be you're going to be 1.3 to 1.5. And I'm usually, right now, I'm trolling about 1.3. So that's trolling lead core and trolling bottom bouncers. I'm going to show you guys how I tie those quick clips to my main line, and then also, like, let's say I'll bring up the casting rod here, but that's what you're doing for trolling bottom bouncers. Alright guys, last thing here is we're going to talk about casting line. Typically on a casting line, I like to use that Nanofill crystal clear, like 10 pound. And so I'm just going to show you how I tie the quick clip to the line with this colored braid here. So first thing you do is you want to go through your quick clip, and you want to kind of grab right there so you got like a little loop. And then what I do is I just, above that loop, I wrap 8 to 10 times, and then I bring that tag end back through that loop, bring it back through the loop, and I grab that tag end, bring it up, and I'm holding on to the clip, wet it, and then I'm just going to release that tag end and I'm going to let it slide down, and it's going to cinch down onto that clip, and then I'm going to cut that tag end. And so typically on my casting line, like I said, I like to use that clear mist, but then I'll go to like a mono line, and I'll use probably only 3 foot of just kind of like a shock line and just a clear line that they can't see. So that's it. I went over trolling and speed and everything like that. If you guys can think of anything else, please comment. I really, I'm glad that you guys, I hope you guys are enjoying the videos anyways. And if you guys are enjoying them, please share with a friend. Give me a like if you like the video, and hopefully we'll be out on the water here shortly and we have some actually fishing going on. But again, if you do like these videos, leave a comment. Let me know that you guys like these videos. If you have any questions about anything that I went over, or maybe I missed something, please comment, send me a message, and I'll answer, reply to you guys. But again, thank you for watching my video, and thanks for making this fun.